if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia. But
what happens when a sitting member of Congress walks into a hearing room and essentially accuses one of America's two major political parties of falling dangerously close to Russian influence? Well, that is exactly what unfolded when Jasmine Crockett stepped up to the microphone, and what happened next raised some very uncomfortable questions. Because this wasn't just another routine political disagreement. This quickly turned into something much bigger. Questions about loyalty, political messaging, and whether parts of the Republican Party have shifted so dramatically that even acknowledging basic geopolitical facts has suddenly become controversial. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, Jasmine Crockett came prepared, and she wasn't holding back. In this clip, she lays out an argument that many people will find controversial, others will find completely justified, but either way, it's guaranteed to spark debate. And trust me, by the end of this exchange, you may understand exactly why this moment is getting so much attention online. Let's unpack everything that happened. And as always, I'll give you my honest thoughts toward the end.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's so interesting to me that we all swear an oath to the Constitution, and we say that we take that oath seriously. But when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia, but that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, there were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people because you had people that didn't know anything about science and decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to, and people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual, and I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem. This is the problem. That is not infringing upon free speech.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield to the right.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. To be clear, your challenge, I think, was across the aisle, because I think every member on your side of the aisle agrees with the obvious fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the filthy, bloody, imperialistic invasion of Ukraine. And in fact, at the time, Donald Trump as president never denied it. In fact, he praised it. He said it was, quote, an act of genius when Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. So I would hope some of our colleagues would consent to at least that historical point, since we think history is so important. There are people who want to relive that in our oversight report.
And therein lies the problem.
Now, here's the part that really stood out to me. And honestly, I think this is the moment that says everything. Jasmine Crockett gave Republicans in that room a very simple opportunity. Not a complicated question, not some political trap, just one basic point of fact. Who invaded who? She essentially asked, can we at least agree that Russia invaded Ukraine? That's it. A yes or no question, something that, not too long ago, would have been one of the easiest bipartisan statements imaginable. And yet, silence. Not one loud, clear response from the Republican side. You could barely hear anything. Maybe one faint voice in the background, but certainly nothing that sounded confident or united. And that silence, whether people want to admit it or not, it speaks volumes. Because let's be honest for a second, go back just a few years. Before Donald Trump reshaped the Republican Party, many of these same lawmakers were openly supportive of helping Ukraine. They talked about standing up to Russian aggression. They supported aid. They framed Putin as a geopolitical threat. That was the message. Now suddenly, the energy feels completely different. And that's what makes moments like this so revealing. If Jasmine Crockett was so wrong, why not just shut the argument down immediately? Why not simply say, yes, Russia invaded Ukraine, end of story? But nobody really stepped forward to do it. To me, that raises a much bigger question about where the Republican Party is politically right now. Are lawmakers speaking for their voters? Or are they increasingly following one political figure and adjusting their positions based on what is politically acceptable inside the party? Because whether you agree with Crockett or not, one thing is hard to ignore. American politics feels more divided and more loyalty-driven than ever before, and moments like this only fuel that conversation. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think is really going on here? Do you think this is just political strategy, party loyalty, or something bigger? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll catch you in the next one.